Good afternoon, AMP family. Welcome to AmpCrew. It's your host, Alex. Today, we're talking the games, all 64 teams, actually 68 technically. There's 4 play-in games, are locked for March Madness, the best time of sports, I think, in the year's calendar is March Madness. Basketball will start. We'll kick off this tournament on Thursday. You get games all day Thursday, Friday, and again on Saturday and Sunday. So today, the theme of the show is let's fill out brackets together. Let's go through this. Some of us are seasoned pros. We've been doing this for years. Some people are making their first brackets ever. Hopefully the show is helpful to all participants. And of course, it would not be the same without callers and hot takes. So if you got questions, comments, you want to jump up here, share your upset pick in the Midwest region, let me know. Call lines are open. But let's start it right now. So let's go bracket by bracket. We'll go region by region. And a quick primer on anybody that wants to jump in and start a bracket. You can do it for free. They're all over the place. Just about every sports website has one. CBS, ESPN, Yahoo. I'm sure your workplace has got one. Your friends have got one going. So if you're not in one, I'm sure there's a place that you can join one. But I just chatted with one of our top creators, Kendall B. Kendall B has created a AmpCrew bracket challenge. So if you want to get in on that, go to Kendall B on Instagram, check him out, and you can fill out a bracket to be included in that. So that should be a good time. So let's go through this. So basically what the bracket is, it's 64 teams. The best 64 teams in college basketball are all put together in a tournament. It's single elimination. So as you go through, if you lose, you're out. And the winners filter all the way down to what's called the Final Four and the National Championship. So the Final Four is the winner from each region, and the National Championship is the last 2 teams standing. Generally, if you go through your bracket and you're picking teams, if you pick the favorite, that's not a bad strategy. Going through what they call that picking chalk, going through and picking the higher seeded team will give you a really good chance to win. Now, I will tell you, if you go through and pick all chalk, all favorites, you're going to be wrong somewhere. No one's getting a perfect bracket. It just doesn't happen. Things happen all over the place. Upsets is what makes March Madness so much fun. But if you're new to the game, you're not quite sure how this all works, pick favorites. It's easy. It's not going to be a bad strategy. You're not cheating by taking 1 seeds all the way to the Final Four. But I will say 1 seeds, all 4 1 seeds generally do not make the Final Four. Somebody's getting upset. Somebody's going down. So let's pick this out here. So let's start in the South region. Let's start with Alabama, the number 1 seed versus a 16 seed. In the first round, pick a 1 seed. A 1 seed has only lost in the first round 1 time in history. UMBC beat Virginia a few years ago. They're one of the biggest upsets in NCAA tournament history. 1 seeds do not lose in the first round. So if we're starting in the South, take Alabama. That's an easy one. Seeds are seeded 1 through 16. 16, those seeds are the lowest seeded teams or the worst teams in the tournament, and 1 seeds are the best teams. So if you're taking 1 seeds, that's fine. Second matchup in that South tournament, Maryland and West Virginia. This is an 8-9 seed. 8-9 seeds are very tough matchups. These are toss-ups. It's really hard to get these ones right. These are usually the 50-50 matchups of the tournament. I've got number 9, West Virginia. They played in the Big 12, one of the best conferences in college basketball. I'm taking West Virginia confidently here. They're also favorites at -140 in the line. So if you're a betting person, go with the favorites. That's an easy way to do it. Number 9, West Virginia over number 8, Maryland. 5, San Diego State against 12, Charleston. 5-12s are upset makers. 12s beat 5s about 35-40% of the time. 12s are a really good team, even though it seems like their seed is a bit low. San Diego State and Charleston, this is a classic 5-12 matchup. A lot of people have Charleston getting upset in this matchup. They like the 31-3 run that Charleston had in the regular season, one of the hottest teams in the country. However, San Diego State was ranked the 14th best team by Ken Pom, which is basically just this college basketball ranking aggregator. Comes out, spits out a number of who the best teams are. It likes San Diego State number 14 in the entire country. So at a 5 seed, they're pretty underseeded. So I like San Diego State in that one. Virginia and Furman, that's a 4 and a 13 seed. Again, pretty good opportunity here for some upsets. I like number 4, Virginia. Virginia is a slow, low-tempo team. They've been in big games before. They won a national title not too long ago, so I like Virginia in that one. Creighton and NC State, that's a 6 and 11. Again, another good upset pick. I'm going all chalk here. I'm staying with Creighton. Creighton's one of the best defensive teams in the tournament, one of the best teams just in the country in general. Spoiler, I think they can go all the way into the Sweet 16, maybe upset Arizona, which we'll talk about in a minute. Here's my big upset pick for the South region. We've got number 3 Baylor against number 14 UCSB. I don't believe in the Baylor Bears. They have not had a good close to the season. They've lost 4 of their last 6. They haven't had a big win in a long time, and UC Santa Barbara just isn't losing. They're one of the hottest three-point shooting teams in the entire tournament. One of the biggest red flags for me, if a team does not defend the 3-ball well, they're going to get burned in March, because all it takes is one game, one team gets hot, and you will have a hard time beating them in a one-game opportunity. So I like UCSB, the 14 seed, to beat Baylor, the number 3 seed. That's a hot take. You do not have to follow me down this path, but I'm speaking my truth. That's what I'm feeling. Number 7, Missouri, and 10, Utah State. This is another popular upset pick. People like Utah State. I like Utah State here as well, one of the best teams in this tournament, underseeded at number 10. Missouri played in a really tough SEC conference. They got all the way down and played Auburn, who's a number 9 seed in the other side of the bracket. Really tough. I think Auburn's a great team. I don't think Missouri's quite as good. I like Utah State at the 10 seed to upset Missouri. And rounding out the first-round matchups in the South region, number 2 Arizona versus number 15 Princeton. Princeton returning to the tournament for the first time in several seasons. If you've been watching college basketball, you know how good Arizona is. They're the Pac-12 tournament champions. I'm a UCLA guy, so I personally dislike Arizona because they've been a really good rival for us in the regular season. Arizona is a trendy national championship pick. So Arizona's not going to stub their toe here in the first round against Princeton. I think they're going to sail all the way into the Sweet 16. So that's the South region. That's your first round matchup of the South. We've got the Midwest left to go, East and West. We're going to be taking calls. We're going to be jumping in the chat, try to get to as many hot takes as anybody has. I see Alex speaking another language to me. You know what? I'm glad that you tuned in, and hopefully we can demystify some of March Madness. Essentially, all you got to do, pick the teams that have the lower number next to their name, and you're going to do all right. Don't worry about picking upsets. Leave the upsets to the people who think they're smart. Just pick chalk. Just pick the better teams. The better teams usually win. Hot take, better teams usually win. Let's finish out the South region. Let's get all the way down. Actually, let's take this all the way out to who our final 4 teams are, and then we'll hop over to the next region. Alabama, West Virginia. I mentioned number 1 seeds don't lose very often. This is the second round matchups now. I like Alabama over number 9 West Virginia. Alabama going into the Sweet 16, and they will face San Diego State. So San Diego State, we mentioned, they've got Charleston, that 12 seed. Charleston's a trendy upset pick. They went 31-3 in the regular season. San Diego State's one of the best teams in this tournament. I truly believe that. They beat Charleston in the first round. I think they beat Virginia in the second round. It'll be Alabama, San Diego State in that Sweet 16. I had Creighton beating NC State, and then I had UCSB beating Baylor. This is where UCSB's reign, I think, is going to end. Creighton is a sneaky, really good team in this tournament. I got Creighton in the Sweet 16 as well, and Arizona and Utah State. I said Arizona is one of the best teams in the tournament. They really are. They beat Utah State, I think, handily. So my Sweet 16, my 4 teams of the Sweet 16 in the South region, Alabama, San Diego State, Creighton, and Arizona. Those are my 4 South region Sweet 16 teams. And then I got Alabama and Arizona going into the Elite Eight with Alabama as my South champ. So Alabama will be my Final Four team coming out of the South. That is my number 1 team, I think, in the entire tournament. Brandon Williams might be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Really good all-around team. Played a very difficult SEC conference lineup. Alabama will be a tough out in this tournament. If you pick Arizona to go to the Final Four, I do not blame you. Arizona is one of the best offensive teams in the tournament. I've just seen them play UCLA, and I've seen them get beat up on the glass. They do not defend well when they get worn down. They're really offensively dominant when they're going, but they don't have a lot of defense, and they don't rebound as well as a big team should. So I like Alabama to take home that title in the South. They'll be in the Final Four. If you got any calls, questions, concerns about anything we're talking about here in March Madness, jump in. If you got just general AMP questions and concerns, drop them in the chat. We'll try to get to them as soon as we can. You can also find us at the chat bot. We got lovely people there waiting to help answer your questions as soon as you have them. So we got 3 more regions to go. We got the Midwest, we got the East, and the West. We'll take a quick break, play a little music, and then we'll get to the Midwest region. So we just did the South. I've got Alabama coming out of the South as my number 1 seed, and they're going to be in the Final Four. We'll get to the Midwest region in just a second. Welcome back to AmpCrew. My name is Alex. You know what? We're putting together a March Madness bracket. Let's be wrong together, okay? We're all going to make some mistakes. Perfect brackets don't exist. Perfect people don't exist. Perfect brackets are even harder to find, truly. They have like a $5.6 million pot, I think, for ESPN if you get the perfect bracket. Nobody wins it. You can't do it. You literally cannot make a perfect bracket. The variables are just too high. But you know what we're going to try? Today we're going to try together, the power of the community, we're going to try. So if you got questions about anything else, any of these picks I'm making here, if you got a rebuttal, jump on up here. I've got plenty of upsets in here. If you don't believe me, if you don't agree with me, I want the clapbacks. Come on in here. Call lines are wide open. And if you want to get in on this, if you're having some fun with the idea of making a bracket, you don't have one, our main man, Kendall B, he's got one. Kendall B's in here in the chat. Tap on his profile. I think he said he put it in his link tree, so you can find it there. He's also mentioning it here in the chat. If you want to get in on that, that's going to be super fun. I'm going to make a bracket, so jump on in here and let's have some fun together. But we got another region to get to, the Midwest region, so we're going to go 1 through 16 through all matchups here, break it down just like we did in the South. Number 1, Houston versus number 16, Northern Kentucky. Like I said, 16 seeds just don't win. They've won once in the last 60, 70 years of the NCAA tournament before it even went to 64 teams. They've only won once. So Houston, they're one of the best teams in the tournament, a number 1 seed for a reason. Houston's going to clean up easily. I've got them going on. 8-9, this is another 8-9 matchup, Auburn and Iowa. I talked about how much I like teams that defend the 3-ball well. Auburn's one of the best 3-point defending teams in the country. I love the conference play that they played in, a really difficult SEC conference this season, with Alabama being the best team in the tournament. They had to play them twice. So I like Auburn beating Iowa and moving on. The 5-12 matchup is Miami and Drake. Again, ripe for an upset. Got a lot of people picking Drake in this one. I believe in Miami. Drake had to really catch fire to even make this tournament. I think Miami they're an Elite 8 team from last year. I think they continue shooting the 2-ball and the 3-ball very well. I like Miami in this game. Even though they're a trendy pick to be upset, I don't think it happens. The 4 and the 13, however, I think is where it does happen. Indiana is the 4 seed. Kent State is the 13 seed. Kent State's one of the better bad teams, the 13 seed, one of the better bad teams in this tournament. And all you have to do is look at the money line. A 4 and a 13 seed spread. Kent State's only a plus 165 underdog. That's really good money. If you're looking for an upset pick, Kent State's a really trendy upset pick here in the first round of the tournament. I think they take out number 4 Indiana on this side of the bracket. Feel free. There's no way I'm wrong. There's no way I'm wrong. Next matchup, number 6 Iowa State versus the play-ins. The play-in games I think are actually happening tonight and tomorrow. Mississippi State or Pitt will get that 11 seed. I always hate picking these because you don't know who's going to win. I don't know if the matchup really changed regardless, though, of who Iowa State plays. I like Iowa State in that matchup regardless. Number 3, Xavier over 14, Kennesaw State. This is another upset-ish pick because you look at the seed, you think maybe a 3 seed might find some trouble here in the first round of the tournament. Absolutely not. Xavier is a very good basketball team. Xavier is a sneaky Elite 8 Final Four pick for some people. I like Xavier in this game by double digits. Book it. No questions asked. Number 7, Texas A&M versus 10, Penn State. Another good trendy upset pick. I like Texas A&M. Again, I'm picking the SEC. I think the conference lineup, the caliber of talent that these SEC teams had to play all season long makes me believe in them a little bit more than a team like Penn State, which had a pretty easy road in the conference and just hasn't played good basketball up until the last month and a half of the season. I like Texas A&M. I think they're underseeded at number 7. And at the bottom of the bracket here in the Midwest, number 2, Texas versus 15, Colgate. I'm going to come right out and say it. I got Texas as a Final Four team in this region. I think after the whole Chris Beard thing went down, they played some really good basketball through their interim head coach. I think they're playing really good right now, peaking at the right time. So I got Texas over Colgate at the bottom of that bracket. Heading back up to our second round matchups, we got Houston and Auburn. That's a 1-9. I think Houston wins this one pretty handily. Miami, Kent State, that's your 5 and 13. I think Kent State keeps the magic alive. Here's the thing. When you pick an upset, when you pick a 13 seed, you want to bounce them out early so that you're not burned, because a lot of times they don't win that first game. So whoever does win probably has a good chance of winning that second game, and that upset pick looks even worse. But I'm going against my rules here. I got Kent State in the Sweet 16 beating Miami. The Golden Flashes, I think, are a sneaky team to make some brackets really go boom here in this March Madness season. So I got Kent State sneaking up into that Sweet 16. Iowa State and Xavier, putting money where my mouth is. I think Xavier is one of the better teams here in this bracket. I think they easily beat Iowa State. They're going to play Texas in that Elite Eight matchup because Texas A&M and Texas in that second round. Texas all the way. Coming my Sweet 16 matchups here. These are my 4 teams, my 4 Sweet 16 teams in the Midwest. Houston, Kent State, Xavier, and Texas. Those are my 4 Sweet 16 teams. I like Houston to beat Kent State. That's where the party ends. The carousel goes silent. It's over. Kent State goes home. Houston, one of the best teams in the tournament. I think they beat Kent State without a problem. And Texas over Xavier, I think, will be a close matchup, really kind of a toss-up. However you feel the brackets are filling out. Sometimes you just write the name and think, you know what, I like Xavier. That's fine. This game's going to be a coin flip. Both teams incredibly talented. I think Texas' interior defense is just a little bit better, and that they've played just a better schedule. So I like Texas to beat Xavier and make their way into the Elite Eight. And my Final Four team, like I mentioned, I teased it at the beginning, a matchup of the 2 Texas teams, Houston and Texas. Houston's the number 1 seed in this region, but I like Texas in that 2 seed. Will be a toss-up kind of game. I really like how this formerly coached by Chris Beard team. But remember, this Texas team started the season 12-1. They played a really tough Big 12 team. They went 14-8 in quad 1 games, which basically just means they played good teams all season long and beat them most of the time. I think this Texas team is a really resilient team. I think they're going to be very difficult to beat come tournament time, and I got them in my Final Four. So we've completed the top half of this bracket. The South region, I have Alabama going all the way through, beating Arizona in that regional final to make it to the Final Four. And then in my Midwest side of the bracket, an all-Texas matchup, Houston and Texas, I got that number 2 seed Texas taking out Houston to reach the Final Four and represent the Midwest region. 2 more regions to go. We'll talk about the East region here in a minute, and then we'll talk about the West region to bring us home, which is headlined by none other than my alma mater of UCLA. And sneaky pick. I'm taking them pretty far. 2 more regions to go. We got some music. I'm going to hop through the questions into the chat right now. Anybody that wants to get in on this, our main man, Kendall B, is promoting his own AMP bracket. So jump on in there, make your brackets just for fun. No money involved, just enjoying each other's company, enjoying how smart and how wrong we're all going to inevitably be. And don't be mad if you're taking these picks seriously. Hey, you know what? Plausible deniability, man. I didn't watch all these teams. I watched some highlights of some games of some others, some not at all. I can promise you I didn't watch Vermont basketball 1 bounce this season. What's going on, everybody? It's Alex here from AmpCrew. We're talking brackets, March Madness, baby. If you've missed the first half of the show, not to worry. We talked about the South and the Midwest region. We're going all the way through. We're going game by game, pick by pick, breaking down this bracket, giving you the best, most top-tier tips that I have off the top of my head. Just kidding. I've researched a little bit. I've watched a little bit. And I just generally think this is fun. So this is what we're doing. We're doing a little AmpCrew show, little bracket show. If you got any questions, concerns, hop in the chat. Jump on up here. Let us know what's going on. If you got questions, concerns about the bracket, or just AMP itself. If you got questions about AMP, we can handle those in the chat box. But let's get back to it. Let's get back to the important things, which are the brackets here. Games will start Thursday and Friday. So the first round, the beauty of March Madness basketball is that it's very quick. So all games, first round games are played Thursday and Friday, half Thursday, half Friday. Second round games are split between the weekend. So by Sunday night, we have gone from a full field of 64 to the Sweet 16. We will have 16 teams by the end of the weekend. It happens fast. It happens quick. It's the best 4 days of sports. In my opinion, you got wall-to-wall basketball from morning to night. tip to tail. Truly amazing stuff. But here we go. Into the East region. We're going to go through all the way through 1 through 16, and then we're going to take our regional winner out to the Final Four. Top seed in this division, or in this region rather, is Purdue, facing either Texas Southern or somebody else. Doesn't really matter. 16 seeds. They don't win. We've talked about this. Purdue, they started the season 22-1. They got Zach Edey. This guy's a monster. 7'4", 22 points a game. Zach Edey is an absolute beast. Purdue's not going to have any problems with the 16 seed in their first matchup. They're moving on pretty easily. Here's the 8-9, Memphis, Florida Atlantic. I don't know why Memphis is being picked by 72% of users. I don't get it. Florida Atlantic swept through Conference USA. They've played 3 games against the AP Top 25. They've only lost 3 games all season. They're the 13th ranked team in net. I don't get it. Why is Memphis getting picked over Florida Atlantic? Give me FAU all day long in this 8-9 matchup. No questions asked. 5 seed Duke, 12 seed Oral Roberts. Fun fact, no team has been upset in the playoff or in this tournament than Duke. Duke has lost to a lower seeded team more often than any other team in tournament history. They are upset fodder. So if you take Oral Roberts here, I don't blame you. However, Duke's clicking right now. Duke's won, I think, 9 games in a row. They captured the ACC tournament title. This is a good team to bet on. They've gone up and down in quad 1 games. Quad 1 just means teams that are good. They went 5-6 against good teams. So Duke isn't a team I'm taking very far, but I like them over Oral Roberts. Now, if you take Oral Roberts over Duke in the first round, no worries there. Makes sense. They're just primed to be upset, but I like Duke in the first round. 4 Tennessee versus 3 Louisiana. I think this one's easy. Spoiler alert, I take Tennessee pretty far, and I'll tell you why once we get to the next round. But I like Tennessee here pretty easily over the Ragin' Cajuns, which, side note, phenomenal nickname. The Ragin' Cajuns, come on. Number 6, Kentucky versus 11, Providence. If you remember Providence from last season, they were an Elite 8 team. They had 4 quad 1 wins this season, a very, very good year this year. I think they're a sneaky team. They kind of fell down the bubble because they didn't play very well down the stretch. Kentucky wasn't a lock to make the NCAA tournament at all this season. And the name recognition, the blue blood program of Kentucky, I like them to get bounced in the first round. I like Providence. That 11 seed, I think they're going to move on. I don't like Kentucky in this tournament much at all. So I'm taking them out early, first round. Give me that 11 seed Providence. Number 3, Kansas State. Number 14, Montana State. Again, this is I think a pretty easy pick. We got 94% of America picking Kansas State. I'm going to agree with them on this one. I'm not thinking Montana State's really much of a threat against a good Kansas State team. I take Kansas State out a little bit. So I like them in that 3-14 matchup. Here's a big one. Michigan State versus number 10 USC. Both of these teams were bubble teams. I think both of these teams are well balanced. I think both of these teams have a chance to win a second round matchup, which we'll talk about in a second. Who wins this game, I think, is a toss-up. I like the coaching of Tom Izzo. I think they're a better coach team. I think they defend a little bit better. I like Michigan State in this game. SC can be an easy spoiler. It's a 7-10 matchup. So, again, these games are kind of like coin flips. It's hard to call them true upsets. They're pretty evenly matched teams. But I like Michigan State in this one. I like the coaching of Tom Izzo. So I got the Spartans over the Trojans, a couple of Roman and Greek soldiers there. Marquette and Vermont. Marquette's the weakest number 2 seed in the tournament. Marquette is ripe to be upset, but it's not going to happen in the first round. A 15 seed just doesn't beat a 2 seed very often. Marquette's going to lose. They're going to lose quickly, but it's not to Vermont. So I take Marquette over Vermont in that first round. Let's go back up to the top second round matchups, Purdue and Florida Atlantic. Purdue, they were the number 1 team in the country in early parts of the season. They kind of faltered down the stretch a little bit, but they still have one of the best players in the country. I like Purdue over Florida Atlantic fairly easily. Duke, number 5, Duke. Number 4, Tennessee. I like Tennessee, and I'll tell you why. Tennessee is the second best rated defensive team in the country. And in March, defense wins championships. You cannot count on shooting. You can defend the three-point line. You can defend the paint. You can rebound. You can give yourself a really, really good chance to win. You're going to be gambling with hot shooting teams. You can never bank on who's going to shoot the ball well on any given night. You just don't know. These are new arenas for these guys. Things happen all the time. But defense is consistent night in and night out. Give me Tennessee over Duke in this one. And shock and surprise, I'm taking Tennessee for a minute. Providence, Kansas State. Give me Kansas State. Providence, reign ends right there. Like I said, if you take an upset pick in the first round, think about how far you want to take them out. Because if that upset doesn't hit, you're stuck with a team that did win that might actually go on and break a couple more bracket matchups. So think about the upset picks as you make them. I like Kansas State, that number 3 seed, to beat Providence. Michigan State, Marquette, here it is. This is it. This is where Marquette goes out. Like I said, weakest number 2 seed in the tournament by far. Shouldn't even be where they are. I like Michigan State to beat Marquette. That's that first really big upset, first high seed to go out in this tournament. So give me Michigan State over Marquette in that second round matchup. Heading back up into the Sweet 16, Purdue, Tennessee. Like I said, defense wins championships. That old adage really does come true when it comes to March basketball. Give me Tennessee over Purdue, the second best defensive team in the country. I really, really like to make a deep run in this postseason. Kansas State, Michigan State. Michigan State played a really good game against Marquette. I think Kansas State will beat them. This is kind of where the magic ends a little bit for the Spartans. They're going to play Tennessee in that Elite Eight matchup to decide who is that region champion. I've been beating this drum for this entire region matchups. Defense is going to win championships here. I like Tennessee to be my East region champion. Go to the Final Four. Defend, defend, defend. That's how you're going to win games in March. So to recap, our 3 Final Four teams so far. We have one more bracket to go, one more region to go. Our 3 Final Four teams to this point. Number 1, Alabama, Brandon Miller, one of the best players in the country. Alabama, I think, being the number 1 overall seed here in this tournament. Really, really good basketball team. They might run the table. I've got them as the region South champs. Number 2, Texas. I got Texas coming out of the Midwest. Got them winning some really big games against A&M, Xavier, and then upsetting Houston. I think Texas is a good, resilient basketball team. I think it'd be very tough to beat, battle-tested. I like the Longhorns there. And then coming out of the East, number 4, Tennessee. This is probably my riskiest, biggest gamble I'm taking in this bracket, taking a 4 seed all the way to the Final Four. But that's how much I believe in defense. I think defense wins championships in March. It truly does. You can count on it night in and night out. I got the Volunteers as my rep in the East, the number 4 seed, going out on a limb. But I think this region is a little bit weak. Like I said, Marquette, the worst number 2 seed in this tournament. I don't love the way Purdue has closed the season. I think Duke is a fraud just in general. Give me Tennessee coming out of the East confidently heading into the Final Four. We got one more region to go. It's the West. A couple of really good, interesting matchups here. We'll talk about Kansas, the number 1 overall seed. We also got UCLA and Gonzaga as the 2 and 3. I think this is a really interesting bracket. Can go a lot of different ways. This particular region. We'll play some music. We'll get right back to it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All of these things can go out the window as soon as that first ball is tipped. As soon as tip-off in Game 1, all bets are off. But like I said, I'm confident in where Tennessee is at. I don't love Marquette. Somebody said, no, Shaka Smart. Shaka Smart's had some great runs in the tournament. VCU legend. However, I do not believe in these Golden Eagles. I like Tennessee to take it out. One more region to go. We got the West to get to. Any questions, comments, drop them in there. I'll get to it as we get them. Welcome back to the AmpCrew. My name is Alex. We're making brackets, baby. Are we going to be wrong? Probably. Are we doing it anyway? Yes. It's all for fun. And if you want to get in on some of this fun, our main man, Kendall B, he's been dropping in the chat. He's doing an AMP bracket. So if you want to get in on this, have a little bit of fun. If you have ones outside of AMP, all great. But if you want to join the fun with some other AMP creators, I'll be jumping in there. I know Kendall's been doing some great stuff on his show just in general. But if you want to continue to interact with some of us, hop on in there and make some cool brackets. All right, we got one more region to go. It's the West region, near and dear to my heart. Let's break it down. Fairly easy, I think, in my mind. We're going 1 through 16 here. Number 1, also, hey, before we get started on this, number 1, 16 matchup. Number 16, Howard. Howard University. This is the first ever tournament appearance for Howard. So shout out Howard and the NCAA tournament since 1982, rather, third time in program history. But shout out to Howard. Haven't been there in 30 years, so good on you. However, it's not going to last very long because you're playing number one Kansas, maybe the best team in the entire tournament. So I think this one's going to be a bloodbath. Number one Kansas really ending the parade for Howard fairly early. I think they take them out. 8-9 Arkansas and Illinois. I've been an SEC bias guy pretty much this entire time. Arkansas started the year 11-1, had a pretty good run in conference play. I just like the way that these teams that play a tough conference schedule, they're a little bit more battle-tested. They've played better opponents. I just generally like them and trust them more in tournament time. So I got Arkansas, the 8 seed, over Illinois, that 9 seed in the West. Number 5, St. Mary's versus 12, VCU. Oh, my goodness. Has this one been a popular upset pick? We talked about it at the top. 12s beating 5s. It happens a lot. Doesn't happen as often as you think it does, but a 12 is going to beat a 5. It happens. Every year, a 5 loses to a 12. We talked about the Duke Oral Roberts. If you wanted to pick Duke to lose there, I don't blame you at all. I think this one's probably going to be the likeliest of all the 5-12s. VCU playing St. Mary's. I like St. Mary's. They play in the same conference as Gonzaga, but here's the thing. That's all they play. They play a really good team once and twice, 3 times a year. That's it. However, they're an 11th-ranked team in KenPom. They're ranked pretty highly by the defensive metrics. They play really, really slow. Teams that play slow can dictate the pace. However, teams that play slow, they score slow. So they can't come back if things get out of hand. VCU shoots the ball very well, and I'm going against my mantra. This is the one time I'm going to go against it. Defense winning championships, yes. VCU shooting, I think, outshoots St. Mary's. St. Mary's plays too slow to come back in this game. And you know what? A 12 is going to beat a 5. It's going to happen. It might as well be VCU. So give me the old Shaka Smart coach VCU Rams. I think they're going to take out St. Mary's in that first round. Number 4, Connecticut. Number 13, Iona. Remember Rick Pitino? Iona is a Rick Pitino coach team. You do not want to count them out regardless of the fact that Rick Pitino is absolutely leaving this program after this year. Thing is, Iona hasn't played anybody. They have no wins in quad 1 or 2, basically meaning they haven't played anybody. Connecticut started the season 14-0, and they were the number 1 ranked team for a moment. Did they lose 5 of the next 6? Yes. However, I still like Connecticut in this game. I think UConn just in general is a good basketball team, good basketball program, and it's coached by a Hurley. Danny Hurley, off that Hurley coaching tree. I like them to beat Iona fairly handily. It's an upset pick-ish. Iona just doesn't have the resume for me to believe in it. Number 6, TCU versus the play-in, either Arizona State or Nevada. I talked about this. This is where I don't like play-in matchups because I don't know who's actually going to be playing this game, so it's hard to pick without knowing who's actually won this 11-seed play-in. But I think it's going to be Arizona State, and I think Arizona State beats TCU. TCU is a good basketball team, like we were talking about playing in that good conference. I just like where Arizona State has been in general. Arizona State's played in the tough Pac-12. They played UCLA close a couple of times. They've beaten Arizona, which is a number 2 seed in this tournament. I like ASU against TCU, this 11-6, another trendy upset pick. I don't like TCU, and here's the thing. I think it doesn't matter who wins this game because they're going to play Gonzaga in the next round. Doesn't matter. So I like Arizona State at the 11 seed to beat 6 TCU. Moving on down, number 3, Gonzaga versus 14, Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's like a for-profit school. I don't buy that they have a legitimate basketball program. Gonzaga, one of the best programs the last 20 years. Mark Few's been really good at building this team the way he wants to build them. Drew Timmy's coming back for like his 8th year in college. Give me Gonzaga fairly easily, a very good 3 seed in this tournament, and a sneaky pick to be a Final Four candidate coming out of the West. I got the Zags, no problem. Number 7, Northwestern, 10, Boise State. I like Boise State in this one. Boise State's a 10 seed, 7 seed, like we talked about. This is not really an upset pick if you're picking a 10 over a 7. I like how Boise State has played. 27th in net rankings, 31st in KenPom. All that jargon basically means this is a good team. It's a well-balanced team. They rebound well, and they defend well. If I'm picking upsets, give me the team that defends more. I think that's going to give them a better chance at winning that basketball game. Give me Boise State over Northwestern in that first 7-10 matchup. And here we go, bottom of the bracket, my number 1 team of this entire tournament, number 1 on my heart, number 2 in the West, UCLA and UNC Asheville. I got UCLA easily. never a doubt, no questions asked. UCLA beating number 2 or beating number 15, UNC Asheville. Come back to the top of the bracket, Kansas and Arkansas. Number 1, Kansas is going to steamroll, no questions. Easily one of the best teams here in this tournament. Bill Self hopefully will be back on the bench. Been dealing with some health issues over the last few days, but this defending championship team, I think, is going to make another really strong run deep into the March Madness bracket. VCU and UConn. I got UConn beating VCU, trying to protect myself from that upset just in case St. Mary's has a nice deep run, even though I don't think they will. I got UConn over VCU. Moving on into the Sweet 16. Another second-round matchup, Gonzaga, Arizona State. Give me Gonzaga. I like Gonzaga a lot, but not quite enough. UCLA over Boise State. I got UCLA beating Boise State to reach the Sweet 16 yet again. And rounding it out, UCLA, Gonzaga. This will be the best Sweet 16 matchup all weekend long. Mark my words. UCLA, Gonzaga. It'll be a rematch of that Final Four in 2021. UCLA Gonzaga will be a very good matchup. I think this is where the Bruins come back. They get the revenge. Even though they're down, Jalen Clark, who should be the best defensive player in the country, he's out for the season. I still think this UCLA team, we talked about how good Tennessee is on the defensive end, the number 2 defensive team in the country. You know the number 1 defensive team is in the entire country in this tournament? It's UCLA. Give me the teams that defend, that make it difficult for teams to score. I like UCLA over Gonzaga, punching their ticket to get back into that Elite Eight. And Kansas, UConn, it's Kansas. This is going to be really difficult for me in the next round, but Kansas over UConn, I think handily. In the West final, the West Region final, Kansas, UCLA, it's a homer pick for me. It's a homer pick for me. Do not let it be a homer pick for you if you don't buy it, but I do. UCLA will beat Kansas. They'll beat the defending champions. They're going to go to the Final Four. Going to be one of the best teams in this tournament. I think they're so difficult to score against. They slow the pace. They muck it up. They make it difficult for teams to score. Even though Kansas is one of the best teams here, I think UCLA's got a shot. If I weren't such a dang homer and I could look at this objectively, I would take Kansas, but I'm picking my boys, picking UCLA. So here's our Final Four. Number 1, Alabama, the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. They're coming out of the South. I got Texas, the number 2 seed in that Midwest, coming out of the Midwest. Number 4, Tennessee in the East. Defense wins championships. And number 2, UCLA, coming out of the West. So our 2 Final Four matchups, Alabama versus Tennessee and Texas versus UCLA. Well, I took them this far. Can't stop now. UCLA beats Texas to return to the national final. And then Alabama and Tennessee. Give me the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. That's the only time this defense from Tennessee is going to be tested and lose because they've got Brandon Miller. They've got a really talented backcourt. The best team in this tournament, I believe. Alabama beats Tennessee to reach the national final. So we got Alabama, UCLA. Did I really just take my boys all the way to the national final as a 2 seed, losing their best defensive player? Yes, I did. And I'll do it twice. Alabama, UCLA is my national final pick. And, I mean, they're here. I took them all the way out. Bruins win by a score of 65-60. That's my pick. But if you picked Kansas instead of Alabama, here's my thing. If you don't like the Bruins in this bracket, there's only 2 games that they can lose, in my opinion. Something happens against Gonzaga, they can lose that game, or they can lose to Kansas. That's it. If you've got Kansas getting upset by UConn, Bruins handle UConn. You have Gonzaga getting upset by Arizona State, Bruins can handle Arizona State. The only real issue in this bracket for UCLA, I believe, is Kansas. So if you take the number 1 seed out, Kansas should win the national title. I think they can repeat as champs. But that's my 2 cents. I just don't think there's anybody else in this tournament besides Kansas and maybe Gonzaga on a fluke can beat the Bruins in this bracket. So there you go. Your Final Four, my Final Four. Once again, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, UCLA. I cannot wait to check back in with you guys next Tuesday and find that I've lost 2 of these 4, because that's how it always goes. You put $50 in the pot in this bracket that you're sure is correct. And no, you're crumpling it up and you're throwing it away. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for going on this ride with me. Thank you for listening to me talk about college basketball for an hour. You guys are the best, truly the best group of individuals I've ever met. I've never met. We'll be back on Thursday with our show, regularly scheduled programming, talking about some indie spotlight artists. Can't wait for you guys to tune in to that one. And we got some cool stuff coming for you. Creator newsletter should be going out tomorrow, so you should receive that. Some really cool information in there about stuff that's launched, stuff that's upcoming, stuff to kind of help you continue on this road as an AMP creator. My name is Alex. I've been giving you these terrible picks for the last hour. Thank you so much for joining me, going on this journey with me, hanging out with me. We'll be back and doing this on Thursday as always. Thanks for listening, everybody. Go Bruins. Fill out your brackets. Have some fun. We'll see you later.